But we start tonight with an exclusive. Here's Chris Choi.
Many people will remember, I'm sure, the story of a British Airways pilot who saw an unidentified flying object from his flight deck. The case was splashed over many of our newspapers last year, and later in the programme that pilot will be talking about his experience for the first time on television. It is intriguing, a UFO report from such a credible witness. The pilot described a wedge-shaped object, a far cry from the classic flying saucer. But in fact, that wedge or triangle-shaped UFO has been seen more and more frequently in the last decade. Does anybody know what it is? And if not, is anybody seriously trying to find out?
The dog suddenly started barking. I opened the curtain and I saw a bright light in the sky. And then that's when I thought, that's unusual.
Why do you say unusual? What exactly did it look like?
A big bright light, and then there were two small lights behind it. Through the human eye, it was just two small lights, but through the binoculars, it was zigzags.
And was there any shape picked out by those three lights?
It was like looking at the underneath of a Concorde.
So a kind of triangular shape?
That's right.
Now, you're quite used to looking at the sky at night, aren't you?
Yeah, was working in the Merchant Navy, like, out on deck.
What was so different about this?
Because it was so close, there was no noise, so it couldn't have been a helicopter. And it was still, it wasn't moving. But yet, there was a plane flying over it.
Before this happened, did you believe in UFOs?
No, not really, no. It was one of these things where you hear other people talking about them, and you think, no, they're making it up. You know, no way. But when I saw it, when you see it with your own eyes, that's when you start thinking that, hey, something's out there.
After investigation, Ray Jenkinson's hovering triangle in Morecambe remains a mystery. And there's another unexplained triangle that grabbed the headlines in January last year. It happened as BA 5061 began its approach into Manchester Airport.
What exactly you saw?
The captain was flying the aircraft. We had the autopilot in. The captain was flying it for my landing. And I was monitoring what was going on. What my job was to keep an eye on the settings. And as I was monitoring that, my peripheral vision was drawn to something out of the front window. So I actually saw the object coming towards me. What I felt was a silvery grey wedge-shaped object. My first instant reaction was to actually try and reach for the control column to get some way towards moving away from what I thought was an object in very close proximity. The object passed very, very close down the right-hand side. After that, I reacted. The captain, had he seen it? To which he replied, yes, he had. And from there, we decided to ask air traffic control, had they seen anything on radar? They replied they hadn't, and they asked us, would we like to file an air miss, which then meant that the incident would have to be investigated.
That investigation went ahead. Did that come up with the answers you were hoping for?
Not the answers I was hoping for, because I was just... you don't expect to see an aircraft ever in your flying career that close. If I can't explain it and I was there, then I cannot hope that anyone else could ever explain it away.
The Civil Aviation Authority had looked at all possible conventional explanations, from weather balloons to military craft. It found nothing and concluded that the risk and cause were therefore unassessable.
This is the British Aerospace factory at Warton. In terms of flying time, just a stone's throw from Manchester or Morecambe. So is it possible that the sightings I've been told about could be accounted for by new military aircraft? Various governments are working towards the ultimate stealth or radar invisible plane. Here they're working on a version called Halo. So I sent them some drawings of strange triangles that people say they've seen in the skies around here. The engineers wrote back saying, the drawings do not resemble any of British Aerospace's range of products.
But stealth planes do have a triangular shape that resembles many of the alleged UFO sightings, so could further prototypes be undergoing secret trials in our skies?
Yes, they have tested aircraft under the Black Program system, and although that is ongoing now, the best examples we can draw are from those which have now been revealed, the best known of which is the F-117 stealth fighter. Now, that was prototyped in the late 70s. It entered operational service in 1983 and was only revealed by the Americans to exist in 1988. it was in service for 5 years in Nevada before anyone officially acknowledged its existence.
Some of these witnesses describe a craft with amazing agility and speed in the air. I mean, could that really be accounted for by anything our scientists could achieve?
Although a lot of these things do things which are explicable by conventional science, there are other manoeuvres that they do. I'm thinking of the very rapid hairpin type manoeuvres, the rapid accelerations, which are not explicable by any science that is revealed to us at this point in time. I think almost all lights in the skies are explicable by conventional means. However, I've got to say that there are some sightings which do not conform to any of that, and for that I have to have an open mind.
What do you think they might be, those?
I have no idea. Absolutely not.
The MOD told me it doesn't investigate these inexplicable sightings because they're of no defence significance, but I've discovered evidence of government interest at a high level. Some 40 years ago, a junior reporter on the Rochdale Observer experienced the heavy hand of the ministry after writing a series of articles on a UFO sighting in Wardle, Lancashire.
How did it all start?
With a phone call from somebody who said they'd seen a strange object. So I went up to see what it was all about. And they described what they'd seen, this sphere with the lights on and a little sphere underneath. And while we were talking, some other people came up and said they'd seen it as well. So after we got the story from these people that was on the scene, I went around the district and asked other people. Their description was exactly the same.
This was a great local story. It must have gripped the whole area, and yet suddenly your coverage stopped. Why was that?
We had a visit from a man from the ministry who came on, and he told the editor that under the Official Secrets Act, we hadn't to publish any more.
Now the government denies such interest. Nick Pope assessed thousands of UFO reports at the MOD for 3 years until 1994. He claims his bosses should be taking matters more seriously.
We've got a phenomenal amount of evidence that supports the reality of the UFO phenomenon. We have visual sightings backed up by radar evidence. We have radiation readings taken from the ground, many times normal, where these things have allegedly landed. And we have eyewitness testimony, not just from members of the public, but from trained observers, such as pilots.
So hang on, you think that our skies are being visited by alien craft?
That's the only logical conclusion when you have, as we do, a situation where technology is on display, which is way beyond the cutting edge of our own. Things are happening which are, it seems to me, of extreme defence significance. We have a situation ongoing now for several years where our airspace is being routinely penetrated by structured craft of unknown origin.
Isn't it possible, though, that the government is investigating, but you just didn't know about it?
I would have undoubtedly had to have known about it, or certainly in 3 years of research and investigation, I would have got a few hints. I got no such hints.
I'm en route now to an RAF installation called Rudloe Manor. The Ministry of Defence says it has no real significance when it comes to unidentified flying object research, but civilians interested in this particular field, like Matthew Williams, say that it's the coordination point now, and it has been in the past, and this is the place where high-level investigation is continuing into UFOs.
It seems, from what I've been told by insiders that have worked at Rudloe Manor, that they're investigating UFOs here. Reports come in and they're looked at by admirals and generals who are making the decisions about whether or not they are UFOs which are seen.
Well, all we could do, I suppose, is to go and ask them what happens here. We're doing something about UFOs. Is this where they do the UFO investigations?
This would know as well.
Right.
Pretty soon the military police had been informed of our presence.
Yes, hello, can I help you?
I just want to know who you are and what you're doing, that's all.
Oh, Chris Choi from BBC Television, from a programme called Out of This World.
I've heard about it, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. How come you've heard about it?
I have heard about it, that's all.
Oh, from what source?
Why you're filming the front of a Ministry of Defence establishment.
Well, there are no signs saying we can't take any images.
All I'm saying is, all I came here to find out is what you're doing.
We're investigating links between Rudloe and UFO investigation.
Clearly I got nowhere. I've one last hope. Declassified documents held here at the Public Records Office in Kew. Nick Redfern vets the annual MOD releases to see if the government has given anything away.
For the MOD to say that they're not investigating these things is wholly wrong, because if we look at this report, Royal Air Force Police, Special Investigation, Staff Confidential, Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. And what's interesting is this one was investigated by the Provost and Security Services, who the MOD have long maintained have no involvement in the subject. So again, information coming out under the 30-year ruling shows that their public statements don't tally with the evidence.
Well, that's from 1962, and as we come closer up to date, this one is American. What can you tell me about it?
Well, this one's an astonishing document. This was released under the terms of the American Freedom of Information Act by the Defence Intelligence Agency, and this concerns a proposal by the British government at the height of the Cold War that they combine their expertise with the Soviet government and conduct a joint UFO study programme. And this was in 1967 through 1968. So it's quite clear that they're investigating these things on a worldwide basis with countries that are potential enemies.
Individually, all of these documents are of interest. What do you think, though, overall they suggest?
Well, it's interesting. If we look at these documents, you've got paperwork coming out now showing that you've got about 4 or 5 different divisions all involved in this subject. You've got reports coming through from pilots, military personnel, and I honestly believe that the Ministry of Defence are now trying to prepare us for the reality of the UFO phenomenon. Maybe they're going to make some sort of official release, it's hard to say, but personally I think that they are gauging up to releasing some very extraordinary data.
This is a frustrating place to end my journey because many of these boxes contain secrets not due for release until the year 2000 and beyond. It's possible some will contain revelations about UFOs, but we won't know until they're open.
You don't have to believe in alien spacecraft to think this is important. We've shown that the government investigates UFOs, but do they do enough? Whatever that pilot saw, it's still a mystery, and it shouldn't be.